Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Talking About Records. My name is G.I. Sanders. Today we are here to discuss live shopping and whether or not it is transforming the way certain people collect records. I'm going to tell you what live shopping is, I'll tell you about my experience with it, the pros and cons for you as a buyer, for me as a seller, those types of things. First and foremost, before we get into live shopping, I want to talk about record buying in general. In my opinion, there is one best way to buy records, and that is to go to your local record store or go to your thrift store, hit some garage sales, hit a Goodwill, whatever it may be, to dig through records. The physicality of the hunt and the rush of finding something out in the wild, as we say, is, I think, such a critical part of what makes this hobby a great thing. So all that being said, there's a lot of people who don't have a great record store in their area. Or maybe they have a great record store that doesn't stock stuff that they're interested in. So there are other alternatives these days. Obviously, going online is the big alternative, and that's where live shopping has started to creep into the industry. The first, I would say the main way people go shop online, obviously, is they go to a store's website, or they go to, eBay or Discogs or Facebook or wherever it may be to look through listings of records. View static images, look at prices, look at descriptions, add them to your cart and buy, right? Like, that's typically how people buy records online. The idea of live shopping has turned that on its head, because instead of just browsing through images and text, live shopping is actually buying from a real person in a live setting. So you would be watching on your phone, and a seller would be describing a record and actually showing you the record, giving you the ability to purchase it in a more interactive and engaging way. That's what live shopping is. And this is obviously not exclusive to records. There are huge trends within lots of industries, retail industry, and collectibles, where this has taken a hold and has been around for many, many years. Now, I will say, in regards to live shopping, you've got options out there. Lots of people, you can find live shopping examples here on YouTube where people sell records, certainly on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, things like that, all of your social media platforms. But an app called Whatnot has become a really popular way for sellers to sell records and for collectors to engage with those sellers in a live environment. I have done, at this point, I think nearly 200 different shows on Whatnot. I'll tell you what that looks like. And it's just been an incredible experiment on my part to see how it works. And I think from my customer standpoint, it's been very interesting to kind of come on that journey as well. So I think it's critical to talk about, first and foremost, what live shopping looks like from your standpoint as a consumer. So the biggest benefit of live shopping, from my perspective, as a record shopper, because I've bought records in this environment as opposed to just selling them, is the engagement level, right? And the trust level. Because when you're simply looking at a website, again, it doesn't matter if it's a record store's website, you're looking at eBay, you're looking at Discogs, anywhere you can look online, you're simply looking through, like I mentioned, photos of a product, and you're reading descriptions of a product, and that's as far as it goes. But when in the live shopping environment, it gives the seller the ability to actually be a lot more transparent about what they're selling. They can tell you about it in more detail. They can tell you their opinions on it, whether it be from a quality perspective, whether or not they just like the music, those types of things. So it's a lot more, there's a lot more depth to it, I think, when it comes to live shopping versus just standard online shopping. So I think that's very, very important. Obviously, when it comes to records, grading and condition is big. And so that's, I think, the biggest thing from a buyer's perspective that you can take advantage of is it gives you the ability to really understand what you're buying a lot more if the seller is doing their job and actually describing it properly. So that's very important. And it's kind of the closest thing, I think, to kind of digging through the racks in a virtual environment, because again, if I'm just scrolling pages of images and reading descriptions, like that's very disconnected from what I mentioned at the beginning, which is the best way to buy records, which is physically touching them and feeling them. Well, you can't do that virtually, but at least if you're talking with someone or you're listening to someone describe something, you're seeing it in more detail, it gives you a much better idea of what you're buying. So I think that kind of virtual digging aspect is really, really important. And also what's key here is that, again, I mentioned a lot of people don't have a good record store very close to them. In this way, in this environment, you can pop up the Whatnot app, for example, and you can browse, 10, 20, 50 different sellers at any given time who are selling records. Now, some of those sellers are going to be top tier sellers, and I'll talk about some of those. And then some of them are just going to be kind of novices looking to unload some records. So you've got to sift through some of that to find the right sellers who are selling the genres, the records that you're interested in, and then develop trust with that seller based on whether or not their grading is accurate, whether or not what they're selling is what they've described, right? So there is some work involved. It's not, but that's no different than walking into a record store you've never been in. You have no idea if the prices are going to be, good, if the condition is going to be reflect that price, those types of things. So that doesn't change, but what changes is the fact that you can sit in your house and do it, and you can shop worldwide. So no matter where you're at in the world, you can shop online on these live shopping experiences like on Whatnot, and you've got a lot of options there, again, because there's a lot of people selling, so that's really cool. The other things I think that are cool from a live shopping experience is, at least again, thinking about the way I do this, is the curation of it, because typically when I put together a show and I'm going to go live and I'm going to get an audience to watch me, I'll curate, and it'll be all this type of genre, or there'll be bundles of a similar artist or similar themes and things like that. So I think that's really key, which again, if I'm thinking about walking into a record store, that's the type of stuff I appreciate when I see a curated bin of just, 90s hip hop. Like, okay, cool. I know exactly what I'm looking for here, as opposed to going into a record store that isn't very organized or isn't very well spaced out, right? So if you think about that in a virtual environment, curation is very, very important. So those are all, I think, benefits to you as a record buyer of live shopping. I think the other thing is just the personal aspect of it is really, really key. I know when I've engaged in live shopping experiences, a lot of times I buy because I appreciate what the seller's doing. I appreciate their effort. I appreciate the fact that they're taking their time to do this. Of course, I appreciate it if it's an album that I'm looking after and I can get it for a good price. So there's a lot of, again, interaction and engagement that you just can't get from a static buying experience on a website. That's the reality of it, right? So I mentioned I've done over 200 shows, or close to 200 shows, on this app called Whatnot. I will put up a QR code right here to where you can scan that and join the app if you'd like to. I'm also going to, in the comments of this video, put links to a ton of other sellers that also sell on the Whatnot app, because there's a lot of really great stores and individual sellers, and I'm going to call some of those out in the comments of this video. So join the app if you're not already a user of the app. Scan the QR code. You will get a referral, I think $5 credit in your account, $5 or $10 credit to your account just for going through our referral link. And that's, if you buy during one of our shows, that's great, but it's on the whole app. So you can buy anything from any seller and you'll get that credit going through our referral link, which is really cool. So I do want to mention that. Now, that's a lot from the buyer's perspective. Let me talk to you a little bit about what it looks like from my perspective and why I do live selling and why I enable my customers to do live shopping. So it goes both ways in regards to that engagement and that connection. The ability for me, I've got options, obviously. I can list records for sale, just like anyone. I can go list them on my own website. I can list them on eBay, on Discogs, on Facebook, on any type of social app. I can go live on YouTube and sell them. I can go live on Instagram and something. There's a lot of different ways to sell records, a lot of different ways to package them up. But I've found this the live selling aspect is a lot more engaging for me as a seller because I get to interact with the audience. I get to interact with my customers. And on Whatnot, people are listening to me talk just like you're listening to me now, and then they're able to engage in the comment section just like, again, you're able to do here on a YouTube video. But they can actually request, hey, do you have any of this specific artist? Hey, I have a question about this album. And we can actually engage with each other over the course of an hour or two while I do one of these shows. And that's really important for me as a seller because it keeps me interested, it keeps me engaged, and it keeps me connected to the customer, even though it's online. And even though the customer may be across the world, that's really, really unique and really cool. The other thing that's great about live selling and shopping is that there's instant gratification. And what I mean by that is if I want to sell a record, I can list it any of those places I mentioned. And I can kind of sit and wait for a buyer to come along and discover it. That could take hours, days, weeks, months, you know. But in this environment, as a seller, I can decide, hey, I'm going to sell these records tonight, and I can go, and as long as I've got them at a decent price, and as long as I've got an audience that I know trusts me, there's a very good chance that I can sell that record tonight if I want to. So the instant gratification from the buyer's perspective of being able to click and buy, and then from a seller's perspective to be able to know that I'm absolutely going to sell that when I want to sell it or as quickly as I want to sell it, that's very, very important. I mentioned grading and condition from the buyer's perspective. From my perspective as a seller, that's huge too. Just the ability for me to really show the record, to actually show the jacket and what a VG Plus is, what a VG is, in my opinion. Look at the actual LP itself and detail the specifics around the grading, maybe even put it on the turntable so you can hear the audio, all in a live setting. That's really, really important, and I think is a huge benefit on both sides, that level of transparency. Obviously, like I mentioned, you can shop from anywhere in the world. That's huge. I can put up a record, and there can be buyers from all over the world that can engage with that. They can bid on it if it's an auction style, show, but at the same time, there are tons of shows, lots of mine included, that have buy now as well. So it's not just, oh man, it's going to get really competitive and it's going to bid up the price. Well, sure, that can happen when there's an auction going on. But I've also got, and I know a lot of other sellers do the same, tons of inventory just listed at straight sale prices to where you can engage with me as a seller and maybe bid on a few things. But you can also go to my shop within the app, within the Whatnot app, and browse. Sometimes I'll have over 100 items listed of just buy now. So you can pick off a few things, add them to your cart, then you can bid, maybe win a few things, and it bundles all together and ships right to you. So it's a pretty cool environment, I think, for buyers and sellers to engage with. The live shopping, live selling experience has really transformed my business in a lot of ways. And I know from a lot of my customers, it has also changed the way they're shopping, just because of the ease of use, because the fact that you can do it from your couch. Will it replace going into your local record store or going to a estate sale or a yard sale? No, of course it's not going to replace that. This is another way to supplement going into your local record store. Extremely convenient, like I mentioned, and in a lot of ways can be really, really fun too. So it's something I think to keep an eye on in the record industry specifically, to see how it develops. I think Whatnot is far and away the leader in this space, especially in regards to the vinyl category. So check it out if you haven't already. Like I mentioned, you can hit the QR code, go through our referral, download the Whatnot app, create an account just like any other app, and you can start checking out sellers. You can come check out my next show. You can check out any of the sellers I'm going to put in the comments. There's a lot of great sellers, and give me your feedback. What do you think? Have you bid? Have you won? Have you purchased through an app like Whatnot or any other live shopping experiences? That's what I'd love to hear from you as a record buyer, what you think of this type of thing. Is it something you're interested in? Is it something you've already tried before? Would love your feedback. Appreciate you watching. As always, this has been another episode of Talking About Records, and we will see you soon.